My name is Aubrey Hart. I'm 30, and I didn't think a weekend of fishing and paperback novels would end with strangers unloading a dance floor onto my lawn. 2 hours from the city, the lake opens like a sigh. Flat water, pale sky, the kind of quiet you can feel on your skin. My cabin sits back from the road, a 1920s shell I've spent 3 years coaxing back to life. Hand-rubbed floors, a kitchen I tiled myself, a dock I rebuilt plank by stubborn plank. It cost me almost everything I had, and a little more besides. Overtime shifts, canceled trips, holidays spent on YouTube learning how to sister a joist. But standing in that driveway, all I could do was blink at 3 catering trucks, a rental van, and 2 men carrying a rack of champagne flutes across my grass like they owned the horizon. "Hi, are you the sister?" a woman in a black polo chirps, pen tucked behind her ear. "We're thrilled. The reception layout is stunning." "I'm the owner," I say. The word comes out dry. She consults a clipboard. "Perfect. Bride's family has full access, per the contract. We'll keep the band on the north side to preserve the view." "The band?" "Sorry," I say, careful, calm, like I'm untangling a fishing line. "What reception?" "The wedding reception." Her smile dims, then brightens. "Tomorrow. Jessica's? We've got you down as the venue." The name punches straight through the fog. Jessica, my little sister. 6 months engaged to Ryan. I said yes to dress shopping. I sent Venmo when the florist quote made her gasp, but no one asked me to host 150 people on my dock. "I think there's been a mistake," I tell the caterer, and my hands are already shaking. "Please hold off unloading." She hesitates, then nods to her crew. Things stall. Trays clink. A rented arch breathes on my lawn, half assembled, like a rib cage. I call Jessica first. Voicemail. She's at rehearsal. Of course she is. I try again. Straight to the mechanical cheerfulness of her recorded voice. I hang up, inhale, and call the emergency line I've known since childhood, Mom. "Hi, honey," Mom sings. We're knee-deep in peonies. "Mom," I say, "why are there trucks at my lake house?" A beat. Then, faux surprised warmth. "Oh, sweetie, the venue had a fire last week. Catastrophic. But don't worry. We knew you'd want to help your sister. Your place is perfect. We didn't want to bother you with stress." "You didn't ask me." My voice is steady because I am holding it like a full glass. "You signed something in my name." "Don't be dramatic," she says softly, which is how my mother tells you to swallow a boundary. "It's family. One night. We'll clean everything." I step farther up the drive. A guy in a ball cap is rolling a dolly across my sod. Wheel ruts, burrowing like regrets. There are insurance issues, liability. You can't just... "We'll be careful." New voice. "Dad." He must be on speaker. "Aubrey, your sister's getting married. Be flexible." Flexible. Like my porch rail when someone leans too hard. Like my spine when I was a kid and Mom volunteered me for bake sales I couldn't afford time or sugar for, then said I was ungrateful if I pushed back. Flexible like when I hosted Easter just this once and found glitter in my grout for 6 months. "This is my home," I say. "I have plans this weekend." "Reschedule your reading by the lake," Dad replies, a smile in his tone. "Because if he makes my life sound small enough, surely it will fit his plans. You'll love being the hero." What I hear instead? "We decided for you, again." "Put everything on pause," I tell the caterer, covering the phone. "No more unloading." She lifts her palms, caught in the crossfire, and calls to her crew. I pace to the dock. The boards thrum, a sound I know like my own breath, the sound I rebuilt. And somewhere between the ripples and the hot spill of anger in my chest, calculus kicks in. If I shut this down, I ruin Jessica's day. If I don't shut it down, I set a precedent that my house is a public resource. Either way, I'm the headline. My phone buzzes, a text from Ethan. "Made it to the hardware store. Need anything for the dock light? Also, proud of you for taking the weekend off." Ethan is my boyfriend. Steady shoulders, practical hands. He knows this house is my lungs. He also knows my family's talent for deciding on my behalf. I type, "Stop, delete." I don't have words yet. I call my parents back. "If this happens, it happens on my terms," I say. "You come here now and sign papers with every vendor stating you assume liability. You coordinate everything. You pay for any damage, and you clean, thoroughly." A pause. Then Mom breathes relief like I've rescued them from a fire they set. "See, Richard? I told you she'd understand." "I'm not doing this for you," I say. "I'm doing it for Jessica." We're already in the car, Dad declares. This is going to be wonderful. When the call ends, the caterer approaches with careful optimism. So, proceed? Hold, I say. We proceed when my parents arrive and sign, not before. She nods, grateful for a point person. While we wait, I do what I've learned to do when the ground under me tilts. I document. Photos of the truck tires on the grass, video of the walkways, a close-up of the kitchen counters I oiled by hand. Timestamps. I am not cynical. I am a woman with experience. A white sedan appears at the turn, sun flashing on the windshield. Mom disembarks in rehearsal dinner chic, a folder under her arm like an absolution. Dad waves broadly, all pageantry. They hug me as if affection is permission, as if this is a charming misunderstanding. Paperwork, I say, cutting to it. Let's see it. They glance at each other. Mom flips the folder open. Contracts, florist, caterer, rentals, my address printed bold. In the margin on 2 forms, a note. Owner grants full access. Family will coordinate. I did not grant anything, I say, pulse ticking in my throat. We'll sign addenda now, Dad replies, soothing. Aubrey, no one's out to get you. They sign what I type up on my laptop. Basic indemnification for damages. Their names on responsibility lines. Is it ironclad? No. Is it something? Yes. It's also the first time I've ever seen my parents write their names under a boundary that is mine. The caterer exhales like someone finally turned off an alarm. Crew returns to motion. The rental van hums toward the side yard. I intercept. Not across the lawn, I tell the driver. Back it in via the gravel, slowly. He nods, chastened, but tire treads already tattoo my grass. In the kitchen, I tape off a corner of the counter for prep and set trivets like landmines. I point to the sink. No overloading, I say, and the sous chef smiles politely, the way people do when they're planning to ignore you after you leave the room. On the dock, I test the give in a support post, then text Ethan. Change of plans. It's a long story. Can you swing by? He replies almost instantly. On my way. We'll handle it. A breeze skims the lake like it doesn't know about contracts or weaponized family values. I stand in it and think about the first time Mom called my house ours. The word lodged in my ear like sand. Ours meant my money, my labor, my time, converted to a communal asset the second it became convenient. By sunset, string lights are laced between trees I planted, gold beads in their leaves. It is, I admit it even now, beautiful. Beauty doesn't absolve the method, it just makes the lie photogenic. Ethan arrives with a coil of extension cord over his shoulder and that calm I could crawl into. He reads the scene fast. The trucks, the arch, my jaw wired shut. Hey, he says, and I breathe for the first time in an hour. We walk the perimeter together. He points out stress points like we're mapping a forecast. Here the lawn will rut. There the weight will push. That corner needs padding. He doesn't say I told you your family would do this. He says, what do you need? Everything documented, I answer. And someone besides me to tell the rental guys where they can't go. Copy. He peels off to the side yard, already talking to a foreman. It's not heroic, it's competent. It keeps me from cracking. My phone finally buzzes with a text from Jessica. 3 hearts and a blurry rehearsal selfie. I heard there was a hiccup. Thank you for being incredible. Mom said you saved the day. I stare at the words. If I reply now, I'll bleed onto the screen. I put the phone face down. Mom floats in with a clipboard, cheeks bright. See? It's all working. You're going to love how the photos look. Photos of what? I ask. Of the party that happened without my consent? She sighs, real weary. Aubrey, you get so hung up on process. The process is the respect, I say. You didn't ask, you assumed. You created a situation where saying no makes me a villain. Don't talk like that, she says gently, which is how she has always tried to sand my voice down to something agreeable. You'll ruin your sister's night. I won't, I promise. But understand me, this is a one-time exception. There will be a conversation tomorrow, and it won't be about peonies. Dad claps me on the shoulder like I just agreed to chair a fundraiser. That's the spirit. I look past him to the lake, now a mirror of string-light constellations. Somewhere inside all that domestic pageantry is a fault line no one else admits to seeing. I feel it under my feet. I take another photo of the dock, then another, closer, of the little split in the post I'd flagged last month, a reminder that wood and people have limits, and pretending otherwise is how things break. The night before my sister's wedding, my property is a stage, my parents are directors, and I've been cast without consent. I tell myself I can endure one performance. I tell myself tomorrow I will take back the theater. For now, I whisper to the house the way I do when the storms come in. I've got you, I promise. By late morning, the property hums like a beehive. White chairs multiply in rows. The arch completes its rib cage and learns to breathe. The florist's van exhales buckets, roses, eucalyptus, baby's breath, like the lake requested lace. I keep doing the only thing that steadies me: document. Photos of the power cables taped, or not, to the flagstones. A video clip of a rental guy nudging a cart across the grass, wheels chewing. I tell myself I'm not looking for trouble. I'm just refusing to be gaslit later by the word normal wear and tear. Ethan becomes my quiet lieutenant. He reroutes the heavy cases to the gravel, hands out furniture sliders like communion, and repeats a single sentence in that encouraging contractor voice. Let's keep the weight here, not there. He's not loud, but people listen. And every time one problem gets redirected, I feel a knot in my spine loosened by a single notch. At noon, Mom swans in with makeup done and a schedule printed in 14-point font. She kisses the air beside my cheek. We're ahead. Isn't that marvelous? It is marvelous if you don't measure cost. Sign the last vendor addendum, I say, holding out the page for the band. And don't let anyone set hot equipment on the counters. She laughs like I'm adorable. You're as meticulous as your grandfather. His boats didn't sink, I say, and she misses the point on purpose. By 3, guests begin to arrive in tuxedo shirts and silk. A cousin I haven't seen in years hugs me and whispers, I'm so glad you ended up hosting. This place is unreal. I don't correct her phrasing. Ended up is the kind version of what occurred. The ceremony at the church is beautiful. Of course it is. Jessica glows. Ryan looks like a relieved man who just solved a word problem. For 40 minutes, my chest goes soft with pride for my sister, and for a second I almost forgive everything. Then the photos spill onto the steps, and Mom squeezes my hand. Make sure the lights are on when the shuttle pulls up, dear. And I remember exactly where I stand in this choreography. Assistant, not author. The shuttles unload at twilight the way tide brings shells ashore. Neat, relentless. The string lights wake, casting honey on water, and my backyard turns into a magazine spread. I will give the devil this. It is stunning. Hostess with the mostest, Dad announces, sweeping me toward a cluster of arriving relatives. Everyone, this is Aubrey. She saved the entire day. Isn't she a wonder? He raises his glass in a preemptive toast. Laughter, applause. I can feel the narrative knitting itself without my consent. I'm generous, familial, uncomplicated. If they can say it loud enough, maybe I'll believe it. Couldn't have done it without you, Mom stage whispers, loud enough for 3 tables. She's always had a big heart. I smile so my sister won't see my jaw lock. Welcome, I say to strangers. Please enjoy. The caterer's team pours champagne. Trays drift like boats. On the periphery, I clock what other people won't. The guitarist's amp warms on the marble counter despite the trivet stacked inches away. The rental company sneaks one last cart across the lawn's soft edge. A cluster of guests gather on the dock, laughing, the way heavy laughter makes people lean. I breathe through it. Not now, I tell the part of me that wants to sprint. Ethan appears at my shoulder and nods toward the kitchen. You're about to have a problem. We step in. One busboy has filled the deep farmhouse sink with ice to cool sodas, cans bobbing like buoys. Melt water is already skimming the rim. Please drain half, I say. He blinks at me. I add, gentle but iron, now. The wood floors here stain if you so much as glare at them. He obeys. I toss a thick towel across the seam like a sandbag. Ethan meets my eyes. No words, just a promise. I see what you're doing. I'm with you. Back outside, I'm intercepted by a familiar voice, sugared with the kind of sympathy that bruises. Aubrey, this is heavenly. I turn. Marina. Ethan's ex. Same friend orbit, different planet. She's here with a mutual acquaintance who apparently scored an invitation. Her dress is perfect. Her smile is the kind that tasted me once and decided I was an acquired flavor. It really is, I say, because diplomacy functions even on low oxygen. I told people, she says, faux confiding. You're the kind of girl who doesn't blink at a last-minute venue save. You've got money, time, bandwidth. She twists the word like a ring. You're so capable. Capability isn't consent, I reply, pleasant. It's just competence. Her brows lift. Oh, I didn't mean only that it's lovely you could host. Not everyone could afford it. It's meant as praise. It lands as a verdict. Somewhere a cork pops. Someone laughs too loudly. A tire rut deepens a fraction more. I excuse myself before my temper gets a DJ. When I find Jessica, she's incandescent. You're a miracle, she says, arms banding my neck, veil brushing my shoulder. Mom said you were a rock star. I'm happy you're happy, I tell her, and I mean it. Just talk to me later, okay? We need to debrief. She nods, half hearing, already wheeled away by a photographer. Dinner glides. Toasts sparkle. Dad stands, lifts his glass, and tells a story about me rebuilding the dock, how I'm always doing the practical thing. He calls me generous and resilient and says a line that scrapes me raw. Aubrey's success belongs to all of us tonight. There it is, belongs, a word dressed in champagne. Applause reigns. I raise my glass and drink something that tastes like lake water and lightning. After cake, the band leans into a Motown cover, and the dance floor blooms. I circle the perimeter like a shoreline, catching small emergencies before they become fronts. A candle drifting too close to toll, a server balancing a hot pan where marble lives, a tipsy groomsman arguing with gravity on the dock. Off the far end, please, I call, the way a lifeguard calls no diving, carrying warmth instead of scold. Boss, the rental foreman says, jogging up. He calls me boss because I spoke to him like one. Rain's in the forecast after midnight. We'll strike the lights fast to save your trees. I thank him, genuinely. Thoughtfulness is so shiny when you've spent a day scrubbing assumptions. Inside, I find 2 stains blooming on the Persian rug, raspberry thumbprints of celebration, and my stomach knots. Ethan is already crouched with club soda. We'll lift most of it, he says, and the rest. You have photos. We're not going to scream. We're going to have receipts. In the kitchen, despite my earlier warning, a hot sheet pan finds marble. The mark appears like a ghost, a pale bloom of etched stone. The line of my mouth goes white. I don't yell. I note the time, take the picture, write hot pan / left station / 9:42 p.m. The sous chef winces. I'm sorry. We'll comp desserts for your next event. The word next clangs. I nod once, the kind of nod that closes doors. At the dock, laughter swells, heavier, sloppier. I step onto the planks and feel that faint, familiar give, wood flexing like a warning. Hey friends, I call, cheerful. Let's keep it to a dozen at a time. She's sturdy, but she's not a cruise ship. They tease, they disperse, they obey. As I guide them back toward the dance floor, a woman I don't know rubs her wrist and murmurs, I think I slipped earlier, these shoes, you know? I ask if she needs first aid. She waves me off with the universal sign for I'll be fine. A filament of unease threads through me and tugs tight. Later at midnight, Mom loops her arm through mine and surveys the glow. See? Perfect. Aren't you glad we did it here? I'm glad Jessica had a beautiful night, I say. Tomorrow we talk about boundaries. She rolls her eyes as if the word is a hobby I'll outgrow. Always on your soapbox. A soapbox keeps people from stepping on your throat, I say lightly. She laughs, thinks I'm making a joke. By 1, the last song unspools. The DJ kills the bass. The lake exhales relief. Guests drift toward shuttles, trailing confetti and compliments. Dad gives a closing handshake hug that smells like cologne and victory. We'll have the crew back at 9 for cleanup, he says. Don't you worry. I'm not worried, I reply. I'm prepared. After the last car taillights dissolve, the rental team begins to break down. The grass, in the places not protected, looks like a green sheet someone slept rough on. The fire pit smolders. The marble counter's pale ring catches the porch light, a moonrise of damage. The dock creaks, just one note, quiet and meaningful. Ethan and I walk the property in the hush, our footsteps the only percussion. He doesn't give me the pep talk. He doesn't have to. He says the true thing. You did right by your sister, and you didn't lie to yourself about what this was. We sit on the steps, shoes off, toes cooling on wood I sanded with my own hands. Somewhere, a loon calls. Across the shore, a solitary porch lamp winks out. I can finally hear my heart unclench. Tomorrow, I say. I present the bill. Tomorrow I say the words and keep saying them. And if they pretend not to understand, Ethan squeezes my hand. You'll speak louder, with receipts. I nod. The night has a way of making decisions feel clearer. I lean my head on his shoulder and watch the last string light bulb dim. And before sleep takes me like tide, I picture the two things I'll do at dawn: walk the damage with a notebook and lock the gate. The morning after the wedding smelled like sugar and wet grass, sweet, heavy, and faintly rotten. The kind of air that pretends everything's fine while hiding bruises under makeup. I woke to the sound of trucks rumbling down the driveway, vendors collecting what was left of the party. When I stepped outside, the lake shimmered calm, pretending nothing happened. But the yard told the truth. Ruts, deep grooves, where the catering vans had spun in the soft soil. My once smooth lawn looked trampled, scarred. My stomach twisted. Ethan joined me with coffee, eyes scanning the mess. Looks like a construction site, he murmured. It's not even noon, I whispered, and I already want to cry. Inside wasn't better. The kitchen floor had darkened spots from water that must have overflowed overnight. The counters, the marble I'd saved 6 months' worth of paychecks for, wore a pale burn mark, shaped like an apology, that never came. I took pictures, every inch, every stain, every tire track. Ethan helped, his silence steady as scaffolding. By the time Mom arrived to help with cleanup, she was armed with muffins and selective blindness. "Oh, Aubrey, you're being dramatic," she said when I pointed out the gouges in the lawn. "Grass grows back, you know that." "It'll cost thousands to resod," I said, scrolling through the estimates I'd already requested from local contractors. "And that's not counting the dock." Her head snapped up. "What about the dock?" One of the support posts cracked, probably from a heavy load. Someone drove too close. Mom's smile faltered, but only for a heartbeat. "You always overreact. You're so protective of this place." "Because it's mine," I said. The word landed like a stone skipped once, twice, then sank. Dad arrived half an hour later, hands in pockets, surveying damage like he was appraising weather. "You can't blame people for celebrating," he said. "Weddings are messy. Things happen." "Things happen," I repeated, "when you host an event without permission." He waved me off. "Don't start. Everyone's talking about how beautiful it was. You should be proud." "Proud that I was manipulated?" Mom flinched. "Aubrey, language. You make it sound ugly." "It is ugly." Their expressions softened into matching masks of concern, the ones that say you're the problem for noticing the problem. By afternoon, we were in the living room, surrounded by the aftermath. Empty glasses, petals, the faint smell of champagne gone sour. Jessica arrived last, still glowing from her honeymoon high. When she saw my face, her smile wilted. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing you did," I said quickly. "Just damage from the wedding." She looked genuinely horrified. "Oh my God, I didn't know. Mom, Dad, why didn't you tell me?" Mom looked wounded, as if honesty were an act of betrayal. "We didn't want to stress you out, sweetheart. You were just married." "That's not an excuse," Jessica said quietly. "Aubrey deserves to know." Ethan had stayed outside to give us space. Through the window, I saw him coiling an extension cord, his movements precise, the kind of precision that comes from being careful when the world isn't. I laid out the contractor estimates, $8,000 total, lawn restoration, kitchen refinishing, dock repair, and minor fixes. I'd even gone cheap, 3 quotes per job. Dad whistled. "You're kidding, $8,000? That's highway robbery." "That's standard pricing," I said. "And since this was your event, you'll be covering it." Mom's eyes widened. "Aubrey, that's absurd. We already spent so much on the wedding. You make good money. You can afford this." "I can," I said, voice low, "but that's not the point." "You're punishing us," she accused, tears pooling like clockwork, "over a bit of grass." I laughed, sharp, humorless. "This isn't grass, Mom. It's respect." Dad leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Let's be reasonable. We'll pitch in a couple thousand. You handle the rest. Fair compromise." "No," I said. "You caused the damage. You pay for it." "Why are you being like this?" Mom's voice cracked, halfway between disbelief and guilt. "We thought family helps family." Family asked before taking. The silence stretched, taut as fishing line. Jessica finally broke it. "I'll help," she said softly, "even if it takes me a while." I shook my head. "You don't owe me anything. You didn't know." She looked at our parents. "But you did." Dad sighed, long and theatrical. "Enough. We'll think about it." They didn't think about it. 3 days later, an envelope arrived with a check for $500 and a note. For any minor maintenance from the wedding. Let's move on. It felt like a joke written in cursive. Ethan found me on the porch reading it over and over, the lake glinting behind me like an accomplice. Let me guess, he said. They think it's settled. I nodded. They think money fixes everything, except when it's theirs. So what now? I fixed the damage myself, I said, but I'm done pretending this is fine. They're not welcome here anymore. You sure? He asked gently. Positive. I need peace more than I need their approval. He didn't argue. He just wrapped an arm around me while I drafted the message I'd been rehearsing all morning. Mom, Dad, please don't plan any future events here. I've repaired everything at my expense. The lake house is off limits until further notice. I hope someday you'll understand why. I hit send before I could soften it. The reply came within an hour. Mom, you're tearing the family apart over money. Dad, you'll regret this someday. Family should forgive. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I turned off my phone, walked to the dock, and watched the light slide off the water. Behind me, the house stood silent, wounded, but still standing. And for the first time in months, it felt like it belonged to me again. I thought that was the end of it, but peace has a cruel sense of humor. A month later, the phone rang. This time, from my insurance company. When the number flashed on my phone, the insurance company, I thought it was a spam call. It wasn't. Ms. Hart, the agent began politely, we're contacting you regarding a liability claim filed on your homeowner's policy. Excuse me? A guest at an event hosted on your property reported an injury that occurred 6 weeks ago during a wedding reception. My throat went dry. A wedding reception? Yes, ma'am. She alleges she slipped on your dock and fractured her wrist. For a moment, the only sound in my cabin was the creak of the floor under my foot, the same floor I'd refinished after that night. My brain replayed the evening. String lights, laughter, guests leaning over the railing, and one woman rubbing her wrist, dismissing me with a smile. I'll be fine. I'd almost forgotten her face. The agent continued, reading from a script. We'll need to verify event details. Number of guests, permits, liability waivers. I didn't host that event, I said sharply. My parents organized it without my permission. A pause. But you are the property owner, correct? Yes. Then we'll still need your statement. You're liable under your policy unless you can demonstrate that another party assumed responsibility. Which they didn't, I whispered, because I was ambushed. The agent was sympathetic but professional. Please provide any documentation, contracts, or signed agreements showing someone else took ownership of the event. I had copies of the makeshift liability form I'd forced my parents to sign. 2 signatures, 1 witness, Ethan. It was something, but not enough to stop a legal storm. By that afternoon, my stomach was a knot. I called my parents. Mom answered, light as ever. Hi, sweetheart. We were just talking about... Someone's suing me, I said flatly. Silence. For what? Dad cut in. For the wedding. A guest fell on the dock and hurt her wrist. Mom gasped. Oh, that poor woman. But that's not your fault. No, I said, it's yours. You organized the event. You signed contracts. You took responsibility. Aubrey, Dad said. That's ridiculous. You let the wedding happen. That means you accepted the risk. I didn't let it happen. You left me no choice. Dad exhaled through his nose, a habit that meant he was about to rationalize. You're overreacting again. Insurance will cover it. Not without raising my premiums. Not without treating me like a negligent homeowner. So let them, Mom said. That's what insurance is for. I hung up. Ethan watched me pacing the kitchen, phone clutched like a grenade. They're not taking this seriously, are they? No, I said. They never do. Because in their minds, everything that's mine is also theirs. Responsibility doesn't exist, only entitlement. He leaned on the counter, jaw tight. Then it's time to involve a lawyer. So I did. The consultation was a blur of terms. Premises liability, comparative negligence, settlement exposure. My lawyer, Ms. Allen, was calm but honest. Because you allowed the event to proceed, she explained. You're partially liable, even if your parents planned it. I didn't allow it. I was cornered. Unfortunately, she said, the law doesn't differentiate between consent given freely and consent given under pressure. Her words hit harder than any insult my parents had ever thrown at me. Weeks passed. The injured guest's claim solidified. She was suing for medical costs and lost wages. My insurance company settled for $15,000. They covered it, but the letter came with a penalty notice. My annual premium increased by $1,200 for the next 3 years. $15,000. For an injury I didn't cause, at a wedding I didn't agree to host. When I told my parents, they reacted as expected. That's just bad luck, Mom said. You can't control accidents. It's not bad luck, I said. It's negligence. Dad chuckled. Aubrey, you're acting like someone died. It's one lawsuit. One lawsuit that's now my record. Mom sighed. You have to let things go. It's over. It's not over. My insurance premiums went up. You're not paying that. Sweetheart, she said, almost pitying, you can afford it. And there it was again, the mantra of every manipulative family. You can afford it, so it's not a big deal. That night, Ethan found me sitting on the dock steps, laptop open to the insurance notice. I should have stopped the wedding, I said, even if it made me the villain. He sat beside me. They made you choose between being heartless and being exploited. That's not a real choice. The moon was out, quiet and merciless. Its reflection looked cracked on the lake's surface, fractured but whole, like me. A week later, my lawyer called again. During discovery, we obtained digital correspondence related to the event, she said. From your parents' vendor contracts and text messages. You might want to see them. What do you mean, correspondence? There are group messages between your parents and your sister discussing use of your property. It appears they planned the wedding there long before the venue fire. My pulse hammered. You mean before they told me it was an emergency? Yes. They referred to the fire as a contingency plan. There's a message from your mother, quote, don't worry about Aubrey. She'll grumble, but she won't say no if we call it a last-minute crisis. The phone slipped in my hand. Would you like copies of the transcripts? The lawyer asked. Yes, I said quietly. Email everything. When I opened those screenshots later that night, something inside me broke. I saw Jessica's texts, polite, uncertain. Are you sure she'll be okay with it? And Mom's reply, she's too sentimental to say no. We just won't give her time to think. There it was, the proof. They hadn't been desperate, they'd been strategic. Manipulation masquerading as family love. Ethan read the messages beside me, his jaw tightening. They use the word handle, he said, like you're a problem to manage. They've been doing it my whole life, I whispered. I just finally have receipts. I thought I'd be furious. Instead, I felt hollow. When I finally called my parents, I didn't yell. I just read their own words aloud. Mom's voice cracked. Aubrey, you don't understand. We were under pressure. Pressure doesn't justify deceit. We only wanted to help Jessica. You would have said no otherwise. That's called consent, Mom. You should have tried it. Dad cut in, defensive. Sometimes parents make tough calls for the family. You made a call for your convenience, I said, and I paid the price for it, literally. They kept talking over each other, excuses stacking like dominoes. Eventually, I said, we're done. Until you both learn what accountability means, don't contact me. Mom started crying. You're going to regret this someday. I almost laughed. I already do. After I hung up, I blocked them both. The next morning, I filed a formal notice with the county sheriff marking the lake property as private, with trespassing enforcement. Then I installed security cameras, motion lights, and a gate lock. When Ethan saw the no entry without permission sign, he looked at me carefully. You sure you want it to come to this? Yes, I said, because apparently decency requires documentation. A month later, the lake was silent again. The grass was growing back. The dock stood repaired and solid. For the first time since the wedding, I could breathe. But peace doesn't mean forgiveness. It means knowing the truth and deciding it's enough. And that truth had one last message left to deliver. Because Jessica called, crying, the following week. She'd just seen the text messages too. Jessica's voice was trembling when I answered. Aubrey, I saw them. The messages. All of them. She didn't even say hi. Just them. Her words carried the same tone I'd had when I read them, like she'd found something rotten inside, something she loved. I thought Mom was telling the truth, she whispered, about the venue fire, about it being last minute. She lied to me too. Yeah, I said quietly. You were part of the setup, just not the conspirator. There was a long silence. I could hear her crying softly, the muffled sound of betrayal. I never would have agreed if I'd known, she said. I'm so sorry, Aubrey. I should have asked you myself. You shouldn't have had to, I said. That's what parents are supposed to do. Teach us honesty, not manipulation. She sniffled. I tried to call Mom. She's acting like I'm the one dividing the family now. That's how they operate, I said. Anyone who doesn't fall in line becomes the villain. For the first time in years, we were on the same side of the argument, and that made me both grateful and sad. Grateful for her clarity, sad for what it took to reach it. She hesitated. Do you hate them? I thought about that for a long second. The lake outside my window was glass smooth, so still that it reflected my face back at me, tired, but lighter than before. No, I said finally, but I don't trust them, and I won't let them rewrite what happened. Weeks passed. Mom sent texts that sounded like greeting cards dipped in guilt. Family means forgiveness. You're punishing us for trying to help. This distance is killing your father. Dad followed with his brand of logic. We did what we thought was right. It's time to move on. They never once said the words we were wrong. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I focused on rebuilding what they broke. Not just the property, but the peace inside it. I replaced the dock's cracked post myself with Ethan's help, sanded and sealed every plank until it gleamed like wet cedar. We reseeded the lawn, restored the soil, and rewired the lights that had burned out. One evening, while tightening the final bolt on the dock railing, Ethan said, "You know, this place feels different now." "How so?" "It finally feels like it's yours again." I looked out at the sunset curling gold over the water. "It always was," I said. "They just borrowed it without permission." He smiled. "You think you'll ever let them back here?" "Maybe," I said, "if they come with honesty instead of expectations." A few days later, Jessica and Ryan drove up. No entourage, no fanfare, just a bottle of wine and a card that said, "No more surprises. Promise." They stood awkwardly on the porch like kids waiting to be invited in. I opened the door and smiled. "Come on, dinner's ready." We ate outside under the same string lights that once hung over her wedding reception, this time properly anchored, insured, and approved. No vendors, no lies, no chaos. Just family, the version that's earned, not assumed. Jessica toasted quietly. To doing things the right way. Ethan lifted his glass. And to boundaries that keep love from drowning. We laughed, but I felt the truth of it deep in my chest. Later, as they left, Jessica hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," she said, "for standing your ground. I wish I had sooner." "You will," I told her. "That's how we break the pattern." A month later, I hosted something I hadn't dared since the chaos began, a birthday party for Jessica. It was small, intentional, transparent. Every guest RSVP'd. Every vendor signed a waiver. When I emailed Mom the invitation, I attached a note. "You're welcome to attend, but please respect that this property is private. No assumptions, no surprises." She didn't reply, but she came. Late, quiet, standing by the edge of the dock with a plate of cake she barely touched. For a while I ignored her. I didn't owe her conversation. Then she approached, her voice soft. "You've made it beautiful again." "I never stopped," I said. "You just didn't notice." She blinked hard, fighting tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said. "But you did. And pretending you didn't is what kept it from healing." For once, she didn't defend herself. She just nodded. It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was the first honest moment we'd had in years. When the guests left and the lights dimmed, Ethan wrapped his arm around me. "Think this is progress?" he asked. "Maybe," I said, resting my head against him. "But even if it's not, I'm okay. Because I finally understand something." "What's that?" "That boundaries aren't walls," I said. "They're instructions for how to love me correctly." Weeks later, I sat alone on the repaired dock. The lake was still, the stars bright enough to paint the surface silver. The house behind me glowed warm, no longer heavy with old ghosts. I pulled up the original text one last time, my mother's words, her strategy, her assumption that I'd never say no. Then I deleted them. Not because I forgave her, but because I didn't need proof anymore. I knew the truth, and the truth was enough. Before heading back inside, I took one last photo of the dock, solid, shining, perfect again, and whispered to the water, "Never again without my consent." The lake stayed quiet, but I swear it understood.